was September 2006, 3 weeks after the largest known hurricane had slammed into New Orleans and the surrounding area. I was sent in as a crisis mental health responder. My first assignment was with the Army Corps of Engineers, a group of men and women who had literally been standing on the levees as they were breaching. Needless to say, emotions were running high, and there was no sense of normalcy. I will never forget being asked to walk in and work with a veteran lock master. Prior to the storm, several of his crew had decided to evacuate with their families. As the storm approached, other crew decided to leave. But a handful of his crew stayed and weathered the storm, watched as the breach occurred right there in the lower 9th Ward. Some of them took boats across the breach and tried to save as many as possible. Now, as the other crew members returned from their evacuation, the problems began. I was sent in to mediate a discussion between the lockmaster and his crew and his style of managing their new emotional needs. Well, after several hours of sometimes heated debate, the lockmaster agreed his old school style of management by yelling, screaming, and cussing at his team, at his crew, was no longer acceptable and was no longer meeting their emotional needs. His need for emotional intelligence became clear. Emotional intelligence, as defined by Daniel Goleman, is our capacity to understand and manage our own emotions and to recognize and manage emotions in relationships. There are 4 steps, and they're outlined on the handout that is provided at the table with my updated biography. The first step in developing emotional intelligence is recognizing your own emotional experiences. All of us know that emotions are a part of our daily life. However, many of us do not recognize the importance emotions have on how we make decisions, on how we present our attitude to the world, and ultimately, how we perform in the workplace. Developing emotional intelligence helps managers make better decisions, communicate with honest, open, and direct statements, and will help them to lead a team to higher productivity and creativity. The second step in developing emotional intelligence is emotional stewardship. Being accountable and responsible, a good steward of how we express our emotions. Now, sometimes we give emotions negative or positive connotations. Anger being one of those emotions that we typically think of as negative. Well, the reality is, emotions are natural. It is how we manage or express those emotions that can become negative. One of the other assignments that I had after Katrina was working with children who had been affected by the storm. I was sent to La Place, Louisiana, the southwestern tip of Lake Pontchartrain. I went to an elementary school that had been inundated by evacuees. I got to the table with 5 committee members and said, "How can I help you?" And in unison, they said, "Tyrell, just start with Tyrell." And so I sat down with this adorable little 8-year-old boy and began to ask his story. And he told me about the fact his family didn't evacuate, that he watched his house be flooded. He was plucked off the roof by a helicopter. He was told his dog could not be saved. He was shuttled from shelter to shelter, Memphis, Atlanta, California, Houston, before finally arriving at his grandmother's in La Place. I said, Tyrell, I want to give you permission to be angry. What life has handed you justifies your anger. But now listen, Tyrell, it is not okay to bite another student when you're angry. It is not okay to kick the recovery room teacher when you are angry. And it is not okay to run out of the building and make the police chase you when you are angry. Now let's be honest. In the workplace, we have 28-year-old Tyrells, 38, 48, 58-year-old Tyrells who still need to learn how to safely and appropriately express their anger. They need to learn to become emotional stewards. Once you have learned how to identify and express those emotions, it goes from personal competence to social competence. Step 3, recognizing other people's emotions. Now, we know this as business people. The importance of being able to read the other person is essential business practice. Knowing what motivates them is key in negotiating. Learning emotional intelligence and developing this skill enables managers to create teams that are synergistic, that reduces conflict and stress, increases productivity, creativity, and leads them to success. Lastly, emotional intelligence requires the ability to manage emotions in relationships, especially in crisis and conflict. As a conflict specialist, I am very aware that most conflict happens around communication and the dance of power and control. If you are a developed, emotionally intelligent manager, you have the skills to know when the storm gets rough, what to say, how to communicate, and how to lead your team to safety. Now, last winter, my family and I went on a cruise. And on day 3, my daughter Bethany and I chose our own excursion. We decided to go snorkeling in the beautiful bay of Roatan, Honduras. After breakfast, we got on the school bus. We were so excited. The school bus went down the little rickety jungle road. It landed there by the tiki hut. We went to the tiki hut. We got fitted for our flippers, mask, and snorkel. We took goofy pictures. And then we were told to walk down to the shoreline. But don't walk straight because you'll fall over your flippers. So we all waddled down to the shoreline. And we got there just in time to see a beautiful Honduran man come up out of the water and flip his hair back a la Fabio. My daughter said, "Mom, we made the right choice." I enthusiastically agreed. Now, beautiful Honduran man gave us the basic instructions about enjoying snorkeling, and off we went. We saw flora and fauna, and we pointed out the Nemos and the Dories. We took pictures with beautiful Honduran man. Then, the noise sounded that told us to come up. And so we surfaced, And beautiful Honduran man said, "Are you ready for the next part of this exciting adventure?" "Yes, yes," we all said. He said, "Because the true beauty of the coral lies outside the reef." Now I ask you, what is a reef? Coral. A barrier. The reef is a barrier from what? Sharks. And, right, the open ocean. Were we thinking this? No. We just paddled behind beautiful Honduran man right out into the open ocean. We were not able to enjoy the beauty of the coral reef because 15-foot swells were slamming us into it. My daughter and I surfaced, and all 30 of us were trying to get our bearings when Honduran man surfaced, raised both hands, and said, "Don't panic!" Well, at this point, I turned to my daughter, who was getting a degree in experiential education, and I said, "If you are ever leading a group of people in the wilderness and something goes wrong, never scream, 'Don't panic.' Because anybody who hasn't already panicked now thinks it's a great idea." Here's the challenging question. Is your organization prepared, and will your managers have the emotional intelligence, the skills, and the words to use in a crisis instead of, "Don't panic"? I look forward to partnering with your organization to develop an emotional intelligence that gives your managers the skills to create calm, non-anxious, and emotionally intelligent decisions when the storms hit. Thank you very much.